Welcome to Engaged Company Culture, a podcast directed at you, helping you to stop the employee exodus in your organization. This podcast has 3 different types of episodes. First, you have tips, tricks, observations, stories, research from me, Dr. Catherine Weiberg of Profitable Alignment. Second, interviews with other consultants, other coaches who are here to serve you so you can learn other tips and tricks to engaging your employees, to stop the employee exodus, to consciously create and continue a company culture where people want to be and where they encourage other people to come to work and to become your customers. Third, I interview other business leaders who have engaged company cultures and want to share their stories. You might learn from them how they have applied principles of company culture to increase their employee retention, increase their profits, increase their productivity, and increase everyone's job satisfaction. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. On today's episode, I get to talk to Nicole Majik, the Empowerment Alchemist. She also happens to be a friend of mine outside of the podcast. She's somebody I admire and adore. I'm excited that I get to share her with you. She has an interesting and extensive background. She has a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry, but a master's degree in metaphysics, and she has experience as a financial advisor. She is an accomplished leadership and empowerment strategist and educator, and has created highly effective, life-transforming empowerment program, the Alchemy of Transformation. It's pretty fantastic. She awakens your true potential by erasing limiting beliefs and showing you how to live a life you deserve without compromising who you are or what you love. Nicole has appeared on various radio shows, local TV, and as a keynote speaker for international conferences, and has even appeared on the Travel Channel for Greatest Mysteries Smithsonian, as well as Beyond the Unknown. She recently filmed with Jeff Hayes' film for Hacking Happiness, a documentary scheduled to release in early 2023. The whole idea of happiness, that's something that I promote, enjoyment at work. Using the strategic formulas of her empowerment program, the Alchemy of Transformation, along with cognitive behavioral therapy and neurolinguistic programming techniques, she helps you permanently erase self-sabotaging beliefs and transform your obstacles into opportunities to achieve the success you desire. If you wonder how all of these wonderful things that she does apply to corporate audiences, she also led teams when she was a chemist. And she has several stories on conscious leadership on both sides of the coin of corporate leadership. It all wraps together. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Catherine, for having me. Very exciting to be here.
I think it's fantastic. Our audience will want to understand your leadership journey, how you did the leadership teams, and how you got to where you are. Will you share that with us?
Sure. Gladly. I was a chemist for over 16 years. And during my career as a chemist, I rose up into leadership positions and ended up leading a team in chemistry that was actually the center of 8 different departments within pharmaceutical development. I also was the lead analytical chemist on 5 different countries, like campaigns that were happening in 5 different countries, and internationally creating this space of the cultural aspect and just being able to train other people in other countries and highlighting what we were doing amongst, those different countries.
Wow. That's amazing. And I did not intend to interrupt your flow by
No,
expressing astonishment. I just thought it was amazing.
so what ended up happening was, I started working with certain people, and because I was able to, train people, guide them, and be able to be in that space, to hold that space for them to do that and mentor them through the process, I was asked to have more and more people be working with me, and then they were reporting to me. So it just kind of happened and unfolded. This is similar to what has happened through my life, that things just unfold and progress in a positive way. Excuse me for a sec. And as that unfolded, I was able to step into higher and higher leadership roles and responsibilities, really. I was involved in different things like, LIMS administration for our teams, and then rolling out that stuff, like really fashioning the limbs to doing what we wanted, and then rolling it out and training all of the departments that were going to be using it. Mentoring people, bringing them up. So not just within my group, but across the entire company, I was asked to be a mentor to new people that were coming in, and kind of just, give them certain things. I also created an endeavor to improve communications, because when I came into the last place that I worked, I came into the department, there were 15 of us. So we used to go to lunch every Friday. So we'd kind of pack in a pizza joint and all just have fun having lunch together. Fast forward, when I left there, almost, I think I was in my 9th year when I left there, and there was over 70 people in just my department. So it went from 15 to around 70. So the other departments were also doing that. So through that growth, there was turnover in leadership. And, sometimes that's a positive and sometimes it's not. So there were several turnovers, several reorganizations. So there's a lot of what some people kind of look at as chaos and turmoil. And through that process, I always looked at how can things improve and go more smoothly. And I created this communications initiative. So it was like the communications improvement team. So I also had this team across different departments that came together, and I put out a newsletter. I did things, it was all in my own time. I put out a newsletter of findings. I did surveys. I ended up presenting at one of our department meetings, different findings that I found with a survey that I put together that was completely anonymous. So to get people to authentically answer very vulnerable questions about how they felt in the department, it really gave some good insight as to where we could improve in our communications, where we could improve in our morale building, and all of that. So I took all of that to heart. And so there's that. Plus there was my team that was like my kids in a way, and just, helping them to develop and grow. So that's it in a nutshell.
That is amazing. I love that through growth and through transition and through leadership turnover and changes, that you focus so much on your team to improve communication, to encourage feedback, to engender trust, and really engage them in everything that was going on.
Yeah, because people want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to feel like they're contributing, that they're valuable in that contribution. And significant, their significance.
I completely agree. So you use the phrase conscious leadership in your write-up. Is this what conscious leadership looks like? And is it a term that you created, or is it out there otherwise?
It's out there, and conscious leadership is about being conscious and present in your own self to be able to lead people, to empower them, right? There it is, that empower word, to really focus in on, if you're empowered, you will empower others. So it's creating that within your team or the culture of the business that you're creating or whatever. Conscious leadership is staying in that space, because so many times we see where there's subconscious leadership, and there's a lot of victim, villain, hero modes that are taking place in there, a lot of blaming or not taking responsibility. So there's always a level of responsibility when it comes to conscious leadership, and always a level of curiosity and helping empower others in senses, and knowing that there's not just one way to do things. And let's see what happens if we try something different or listen to somebody's different point of view.
I love it. I love that you mentioned the victim, villain, hero cycle, because I can see how that would affect a culture. Do you by chance have any stories of seeing a victim, villain, hero dynamic and introducing conscious leadership and the transition that brought about?
Victim, villain, hero will cycle through and can easily promote the death of a culture. Because what happens in victim, villain, hero, it's not that one person is always the victim, one person's always the villain, and one person's always the hero. Those modes are subconscious modes of living or feeling, being. When you're in a victim state, things are happening to you, you feel disempowered. The villain is blaming someone. Well, it's not my fault, it's your fault. And the hero says, well, I don't like this conflict, let me just try to fix it, or I'll just take care of it and everything's going to be fine. And you can cycle through those things. If you listen to sometimes when people complain, you can hear victim, villain, and hero in the matter of seconds of each other. So if we look at it in that sense of, if this is the culture that we're fostering, we're not taking responsibility, we're not curious about new things, we feel like everybody's always going to attack us, we don't trust other people, maybe certainly don't even trust ourselves to make the right decisions because they're always going to be wrong or criticized or never good enough. So it just propagates all these negative feelings that we don't want in an environment that is supposed to be productive, right? Collaborative, productive, and moving things along. It's based on fear.
That's beautiful. So how do you help somebody get out of the victim, villain, hero mindset and truly change that, especially since it's so subconscious?
Yeah, these can be very subconsciously ingrained based off of certain limiting beliefs that people have. So sometimes it's a delicate situation where, we can look at a situation and it's about understanding where does this thought process come from? Because sometimes a few of these things can be annihilated just from asking the questions of, well, what actually says that this is true? If we break it down to facts, there are a few facts that support, everything I do is always wrong, or they're not going to like me if I do this or don't do this, or I'm never going to be good enough. So it's, breaking it down, the if-thens, what does it look like? and really like seeing what the behavior patterns are in those situations, because sometimes there has to be a mediation process too. If, let's say, if it's a toxic boss, a worker who's insecure, and things that need to get done, tight timelines, and maybe the worker just feels like they don't have the skill set, they don't feel like they have the wherewithal to get it done or in the time frame, and that just causes more anxiety and fear and procrastination, especially if there's a boss who's maybe a little overcritical or high demands, and there's a conflict there. Maybe it's a personalities thing, and really seeing what can come together, because sometimes it's silly. It really becomes silly.
Mm-hmm.
I've had you get these ideas where if somebody's insecure and they're procrastinating, instead of getting up on them about why something isn't done, this has to get done, go get it done.
Right.
Sometimes asking, what is happening that is inhibiting you from getting this done? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? How can I help? How can I be of support? Getting curious about the situation. So understanding where somebody's coming from. Well, I'm not really sure I remember how to do this, or I learned this and I don't feel like I'm going to do this right. Okay, so maybe they just need a little bit more training, or maybe they just need a little bit more guidance, or maybe they just need a little bit more of that. You've done this 15 bazillion times. This is fine. You're going to be fine. Do you want me to oversee some part of it that you might be feeling a little insecure about? It's okay. It's okay to bring that support in, and it's okay to let people become vulnerable, especially when you're going to receive it calmly and address the facts.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that very much. I can think of different times in my work history and in my life when I've had both sides of that, when I have felt insecure and incapable and frozen. And somebody has come to me, and instead of saying, I can't believe you don't have this done, the person says, what's preventing you? What's stopping you? What's in the way? There have been times that I've been known to say, I don't know. And then that can get unpacked until I figure it out. And just like you said, sometimes those limiting beliefs, when you shine the light on them, they're just silly. You can look at it, and the big monster in the closet is a dust bunny. And it's suddenly something that you can play with or move or discard entirely.
Yeah, and just suck it up in the vacuum and throw it out.
Exactly. Suck it up in the vacuum and throw it out. In my own leadership journey, I've tried to become the leader who does encourage and who does ask questions. I can't say that I've been perfect at it. I can say that things go a lot better when I do, when I actually ask, how can I empower you to do better with this thing that's causing you grief? How can I help you? How can I support you? What can I supply? And it makes a big difference. So even my favorite manager from more than 20 years ago, I still adore her. When the team was struggling, she would jump in and fill any role that needed to be filled because she had experience there. And she was more than just a great technician. She was a great manager and a great leader. So she would jump in, help out, and then step out when she was no longer needed. I still admire and adore her more than 20 years later. It can make
I've had many different types of bosses. Good and bad, right? Good and not so pleasant, I should say. Not necessarily that they're bad, Maybe they were just insecure in their own role. And
Mhm.
that's how I look at it is, it just is what it is. And how
Right.
can we make it more proficient, more productive? And look, I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting anyone else's time. How can it be efficient? How can it be a well-oiled machine? What works? What doesn't? It's all data to me. I worked in analytical chemistry. Everything is all data and data processing, and give me the results, right? Because that was my job. Solve the problem, Nicole, and give me the results and tell us what to do next. Really, that was it. Tell us the best process moving forward and what we need to do next. So if I take that into everything else, that's it. And that's what I did with my team. So Dr. Catherine, I know that we had kind of like talked very briefly about this, is there was a process that I went through in this, seeing what was happening, because my intuition was telling me that our company was growing really fast. And if people didn't come together, if there wasn't a good enough communication, things were going to fall apart. I
Mhm.
know I've seen it happen a number of times where things grow rapidly and then things fall apart. And I didn't want that happening in my team, in my department, in my company. I loved where I worked. And it's okay, what do I see happening and what difference can I make? Right? Because if I want to play victim, or, hey, this is just happening to me. And
Right.
then if I wanted to play the villain, well, that's not my job. Somebody else should do that. And maybe I was the hero where, let me do something to help fix this, right? Or maybe I don't know. I feel like I was in a conscious space that, and part of me is that, that healer bringer, right? Like
Right.
awareness bringer of, can we do something? And instead of, having to swoop in like the superhero when all else is in dire distress, it's proactive. Conscious leadership is proactive. So
Mm.
I felt that that's what I was doing was, okay, let me gather some information and at least give that to the department. I can't control what's happening in the department. After I collected that information and gave it and made suggestions, guess what happened? Nothing.
Ouch.
I was patted on the back. Such a great job. This is super insightful, but then nothing came of it.
Ouch.
So, okay, there's that, two sides of the coin here. Here I did all this work and okay, wah wah. And okay, sitting at my desk looking at this saying, all right, but this isn't going to be sustainable.
Right.
What can I do? What do I have empowered control over? And that was my team. I know how I can operate my team to be a well-oiled machine so that if the stuff hits the fan, my team can hopefully be the least bit affected in a negative way. So would you like to know what I did?
I would like to know what you did because I'm loving this story.
Great. What I did was I took some time for myself and
Mm.
I sat down and I wrote down everybody's names in my group that reported directly to me. And I looked at all of their names and I wrote all the good things about them, their personality, their skill sets, what they could do, what they were trained on, what I could see as their potential. So, and then I created an Excel file and I put all this stuff in there and I saw, okay, what could they also be trained at? So I looked at what everybody was trained on, who was the subject matter experts in certain areas, what were the other things that I had outstanding that maybe could use a little bit more coverage on when it came to the testing and all that stuff, instruments and training. And I looked at who my potentials were to get this training, and could, if I made sure that we had so much overlap of this training and abilities, skill sets, what would that look like if I were to project that as looking at my team and my ideal from what I know? So I mapped that out. And then I created a whole other tab in this spreadsheet. And I put all their names down again. And I put everything down that they were trained on, and who was the subject matter expert. And then I looked at, I sat down with every single person. So every person had a one-to-one meeting with me, and I asked them, I prefaced it with saying, look, this place is growing rapidly. There are some things in the systems that need to be revamped. So I laid it out there, what I was doing, and what this meeting here was to gather information so that I can take that information and plug it in and create something that is going to be sustainable for our team to work towards, taking into mind what we need to accomplish as a team, what we need to accomplish as a business, the whole pharmaceutical of what our projects were and what we needed to accomplish in our tight timelines. And then also, what does that individual see for themselves? Because I also had young people on my team. So they were just beginning their lives and their careers. So some of them were just married or single, all different things. Some were just having babies.
Wow.
So many different walks of life. I had a few older people in my team too. So their needs are very different. Their wants, their desires are going to be very different from somebody who's just starting off. So I sat down with every single one of them and told them what I was doing, and that I was going to meet with the team. I think that's what I did, was I met with the team first in one of our team meetings, and I said, this is what I'm doing. So expect to see a one-to-one coming up for me. So I wanted to let them know I'm not reaching out for a one-to-one. Nobody's in trouble, right? So we don't want to spark anxiety. Why are we having a one-to-one? So I let them all know what I was doing. I met with them individually to understand, number one, what they love doing in the job now. Number two, where do they want to develop in the job? Where do they see themselves in 1, 3, 5 years from now? Where do they want to progress towards? Do they want my job? Do they want something greater? It's okay to say you want my job. I told every single one, if you want my job, that's great. I can groom you to take my job. That means that I'm growing too.
Excellent.
Right? This is not a threat. A conscious leader does not take somebody who says, I want your job. I want to be in your shoes. Don't take that as a threat. Take that as an opportunity. And the last thing was, what did they see for themselves in their personal life? Because I wanted to understand what was important to them in their personal life so that I could factor that in. That is super important to factor in, because if I know that so-and-so who just had a baby, like we're trying to have like 2 or 3 kids. Okay, well, what does that mean for your growth and development in your career? How does that factor in? What do you want? What is the ideal? And then I take that, how does that fit into the vision and the mission and of the business, and also what I see in my team? Because if it means that this person is doing 57% of the work, what happens when they have another child and they're out on leave?
Right.
Okay, well, that's not their fault and that's not their problem. That's my thing to factor in and plan for, right? So it's not their fault that they're not here. They can't get the work done and all this stuff. We're not doing that. So I also, and this was the most satisfying part, was sitting down and saying, okay, when we talked about their growth and where they saw themselves, I would bring up my screen on them and say, well, these are the areas that I thought would be really great for you to grow in. And the responses back that I got were incredible, where they would say, well, you really see me learning this? You really see me presenting to these groups?
I love
And
that.
I'm like, yeah, what don't you see? Because this is what I see in you. So where's the gap between what I see and what you think of yourself? And I really honed in on the insecurities that they did have around their career. And we closed those gaps because I asked them, is this something that you want to pursue? I had somebody in my group that said, no, I don't. I really want to focus on this. I feel really comfortable doing this. They needed a routine. They needed something very structured and routine. Okay, so we worked that out for them. And then other people was, I didn't even think that it was possible for me to do this. Yes, I'm interested. What do we need to do? So then I took all that information, I sat with it all on what everybody wants, and I came out with a plan. And then I sat with the team and I rolled it out and I said, hey, this is what we're going over. Does this make sense? Is it? And everyone was excited because I came up with a 1 year long plan. These are the things that people are going to get trained on, some cross training so that we have multiple subject matter experts. So what that did was take people from having to protect, I'm the one who does this, so people need me, so I'm valuable. No, you are valuable because of this, and you can transfer that knowledge so that we can have two people that are just as valuable. So guess what? You can take a vacation or a sick day or a personal day or whatever it is that you need to do so that you don't come back with the anxiety and the dread that you may have had before of there's a pile of work waiting for me on my desk and I'm the only one that can do it. And I don't want to take a vacation. I don't want to take a sick day because of the anxiety and the burden that's going to be waiting for me when I come back.
Nicole, what you just described is exactly the perfect model of appreciative intelligence that I take to organizations. It is precisely every step what I encourage organizations to do. I don't think we've ever talked about this before, but you outlined exactly what I encourage, exactly what I teach, exactly my reframe, rewrite, redesign model, everything about appreciative intelligence, embracing the strengths, embracing the whole person, recognizing that every person is more than that person's job description, and how can you build the complementary teams. Everything you just described encapsulates everything that I encourage and everything that I share and teach with organizations. It was fun to hear on my podcast how somebody has applied everything without even talking to me about it first and can say, look at how well this worked. Yes, it does.
Yeah, and it does. It can work so easily too, because when I took the time to just go through those phases and rolled this out and presented it as a 1 year plan, it wasn't overwhelming. It was easily digestible, and it was just a matter of planning everything out so everything happened in their little stages to take place. And that was part of their goal planning.
Yes.
So it's in the goals. And not only that, it's in the reviews that I did along the way to see where everything is. And, you know, timelines shift and things do wacky things, and that's okay. And we just continue to follow the plan. Now, what happens?
Organization. Sorry.
Yes, right. And there's a harmony that happens in your work and your life. And guess what? When people are more fulfilled because that's being satisfied, the work is easier. It gets done. So my team after that, I love this part. My team after that was nominated for so many awards, and just plain recognition and monetary compensation, because they did the stuff. And here's the thing. Here's what I noticed is when you have this mixed culture of, conscious and subconscious. And what I did see was there was a little bit of inflammation that happened in some groups where, that may not have had as tight a unit as we did. So there was some jealousy there. I did hear some comments about certain things. I always stood up for my group, and I always held a very conscious place where, people can make a difference if they voice what's happening and propose a solution instead of just complaining about a problem, right? If something bothers you, either ask what could be a solution if you really don't know, or if you could propose a solution and say, do you think that this would help? But I did see some inflammation in some areas where, because my team got recognized repeatedly across many different projects. So we worked on multiple projects. We didn't just work on one. So some people were working on just one project. So they're looking at my team getting awards and rewards, in different projects and areas. And maybe it sparked a little bit of a trigger because they felt bad about what was happening in their group, or that they weren't being recognized. They weren't being seen. They weren't being heard. And they weren't being acknowledged. So if you're not, it comes out in strange ways, right? Anger and jealousy and just complaining or whatever, sabotaging, self-sabotaging, really, not necessarily sabotaging other people, but I'm saying self-sabotaging behaviors.
Yes.
And those come from the beliefs that, those beliefs, we take on beliefs from, our parents and people that we look up to. So what happens, when we're growing up, it's our parents and the people that are around us the most. Also, while we're growing up, we're learning from teachers. So our teachers are our mentors, and we look to those teachers as they know so much more than I do. So they can easily have an influence and propagate beliefs and solidify these beliefs in negative beliefs in children. And then we grow up, and now we're working in an environment where we're aligning with people who have like minds, and we're collaborating in a way that it's like-minded. So if we have these beliefs and we encourage negative behaviors or complaining, this is that cancer that happens in a company's culture. So fostering it in the reverse, there's so much resistance sometimes.
Yes.
However, when you can create it in that team, even if it started with a small group, and you hold that, and you hold your barriers, you hold your boundaries, because if somebody would try to cross those boundaries, I was my team's buffer, right? Because you could consider me, I wasn't a director or associate director, but I was in management. So I was in the middle, right? And maybe that's not a cool place to be sometimes. I liked it because I got to see both sides. I could manage both up and down.
That's so fantastic.
So the middle managers out there, you have a very special place. You can manage up and you can manage down.
Yes.
It's super important. You're holding everything together.
It's true. It really is true. And I think that middle management often feels sandwiched and pressed, not empowered to lift, because you can lift both those who are above you in the hierarchy, managing up, and you can lift those who are below you in the hierarchy to create that cohesive team. So you become more of a pillar instead of a squished sandwich.
Yes. And this is where some people have that imposter syndrome creep up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we could go and go and go.
I know we could.
What is the very best way for someone to reach out to and connect with you?
You can connect with me. There's a contact form that is on my website. So if you go to www.majikllc.com, there is a contact space. You can connect. It's magicllc.com/connect. And you can connect with me on all my social, follow me on YouTube. You can send me a message right there, an email. And yeah.
Excellent.
And
all those links are in the show notes. So absolutely, people can go there. With everything we've talked about, what's the one thing that you want people most to remember from our conversation? Or if we missed something?
Let's see. I'm going to say, that the most important thing to remember from this conversation is that you have every part of the solution all within you. Stay conscious, stay present. Your presence keeps you grounded and rational. So really, it's presence is the key to everything. And really understanding, be curious, be present, be conscious in all that you do. And you will transform, you will empower, and you will be aligned.
Nicole, that is fantastic. Thank you. I hope that others have enjoyed this anywhere near as much as I have. I love how what you did ties so closely with what I encourage with people having joy at work and understanding and using appreciative intelligence, empowering teams and individuals to really step into who they are and use all of themselves in their whole lives, in their organizations, in their teams, and in their homes. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Catherine. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to or viewing today's Engaged Company Culture episode. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I hope you have learned something and have something that you can apply today to engage your company culture and encourage your employees to enjoy work. Looking forward to Mondays instead of only looking forward to Fridays. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else you know. Also, like and subscribe to Engaged Company Culture anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a wonderful day.